The night was calm when the flashing lights cut across the quiet street. Police cruisers rolled in, their sirens echoing between the narrow buildings, and within moments, a crowd gathered, curious to see who had been caught this time. Inside the small-town diner sat a man who looked out of place yet strangely familiar. His back was straight, his shoulders square, his hair trimmed in the manner of someone who had once known military discipline. His jacket carried rows of medals and ribbons, polished to a shine. To the casual observer, he was a decorated veteran, maybe even a hero. But tonight, the men in uniform who stormed through the doors weren't there to thank him. They were there to arrest him. "Sir, you are under arrest for impersonating a Navy SEAL." The words echoed through the diner as two officers pulled his arms behind his back. He didn't resist. His expression remained calm, his eyes unflinching as a handcuff snapped around his wrists. People whispered. Some shook their heads. Another fraud, they thought. Another man who had stolen medals, stolen stories, and stolen honor that didn't belong to him. At the station, the interrogation began. His medals were spread across the table like evidence in a trial. Investigators leaned forward, their faces full of suspicion and disdain. They asked him where he had served, which unit he belonged to, who had commanded him. Every question came sharp, calculated, designed to expose a liar. His answers, however, were calm and precise. He spoke of operations overseas, of battles in deserts and mountains, of nights when silence meant survival. He spoke in detail, too much detail, some thought. One officer scoffed. "You memorized all this, didn't you? You think because you can recite dates and names, you're convincing? The internet has everything. Anybody can fake it." The man didn't argue. He simply let the silence speak for him. For hours, they tried to break him down. But his story never wavered. It was almost too perfect, which only fueled their belief that he was a fraud. The longer it went on, the angrier they became. To them, he was insulting every real soldier who had put on a uniform. He was mocking every man who had bled in combat. They called him a liar, a thief, a disgrace. And yet, he remained calm, almost distant, as though none of it mattered to him. In the corner of the room, one younger officer noticed something the others had overlooked. On the man's arm, faint under the sleeve, was a tattoo. Not the kind you could buy at a parlor or download from an online picture. It was specific, a mark known only among those who had survived one of the Navy's most grueling programs. It was not advertised, not replicated, not shared with outsiders. It was something you only owned. The young officer hesitated before speaking. "That tattoo, it looks real." His superior waved him off. "Don't be naive. People copy everything these days. Just another trick to make his story look believable." But doubt had begun to creep in. The hours stretched on until finally the door opened and the air in the room shifted. A Navy admiral stepped inside. His very presence silenced the chatter. The man's uniform bore the weight of decades at sea, rows of ribbons across his chest, the posture of a leader who had commanded men in battle. His eyes scanned the room before settling on the handcuffed man at the table. "This is him?" the admiral asked. "Yes, sir," an officer answered quickly. "Caught impersonating a SEAL. He's been lying for hours. We're ready to file charges." The admiral said nothing at first. He simply studied the man in silence. Slowly, he stepped closer, his eyes narrowing, as if trying to remember something long buried. He reached for the man's sleeve and carefully rolled it up. The room held its breath. The tattoo was revealed, faint but unmistakable. The admiral froze. His jaw tightened, and his voice lowered to a whisper that carried more weight than any shout ever could. "That tattoo, it's real." The officers blinked in confusion. One stammered, "What do you mean, sir?" The admiral's eyes never left the man. "I know him. Years ago. A mission that doesn't exist on record. A mission most of us barely survived. He was there. He carried men out under fire. He bled for this country." The silence was suffocating. The officers who had mocked him now stood frozen with shame. They had been ready to drag his name through the mud, ready to humiliate him. But in truth, the man in handcuffs had been one of the very few who had walked through the fires of hell and lived. Finally, the man spoke for the first time since his arrest. His voice was quiet, steady, carrying the weight of years of silence. I never wanted recognition. I never wanted to be remembered. I wore the uniform because it was my duty. The missions I was part of, they don't make it to the news. They are buried deep. The men I lost, their names will never be spoken, but I carry them every day. He looked down at his wrists, the steel cutting into his skin. These medals, they don't bring me pride. They're reminders. Reminders of the brothers I'll never see again. Reminders of the nights I wake up drenched in sweat. You think I wanted this? To sit in a diner with ribbons on my chest? You think that makes me proud? No, it makes me ache. The Admiral turned sharply to the officers. Take those cuffs off. Now. No one dared hesitate. The chains were removed, and the man rubbed his wrist gently, saying nothing more. The Admiral stepped back and saluted him. The room went still. To salute was no small thing. It was recognition. It was honor. It was an apology without words. And in that moment, every doubt, every accusation dissolved into silence. The officers lowered their heads. Some looked ashamed. One, the young officer, had tears in his eyes. They had been so eager to label him a fraud that they had missed the truth right in front of them. The Admiral finally spoke again, his voice carrying authority. You won't find his name in any file. Men like him aren't supposed to exist. Their records are sealed, their missions erased. They don't come home to parades. They come home to silence. But don't you ever mistake their silence for weakness. And don't you ever call them imposters. The man stood, his shoulders heavy, his eyes distant. He didn't demand an apology. He didn't need one. He simply walked out of the room, disappearing into the night like a ghost, leaving behind only the way to the truth. He didn't want glory. He didn't want recognition. What he wanted had been taken from him long ago. Brothers, peace, a life untouched by war. The officers watched him go. The memory of the night burned into their minds. They would never forget the day they arrested a man for impersonating a SEAL, only to discover he was a real thing. And the Admiral, who had seen too many battles, too many men fall, whispered quietly to himself as the door closed behind the man. Some heroes carry their stories in silence. And sometimes the truest warriors are the ones who never ask to be remembered. Outside, the night swallowed him. He blended into the crowd, just another face, just another man. No one would know what he had done, what he had survived, and that was exactly how he wanted it. Because true warriors don't fight for medals. They don't fight for recognition. They fight because it is their duty. And when the fight is over, they live with the scars in silence. That night, they had accused him of being a fraud. But the truth was far greater. He was a SEAL, a real one, a man who,